Rise and shine, it's Doka time. Welcome to the Trader at Traitors podcast. I'm Matthew, a writer working in unscripted TV development, and this podcast is dedicated mainly to English-speaking versions of The Traitors. However, sometimes we cover other reality strategy shows like Netflix's Million Dollar Secret and recently ITV's Genius Game for the UK. This season of the podcast has been dedicated to the new franchise of my favourite show, The Traitors India. And we're now at the finale. I can't believe we're here already after 9 exciting episodes. It's the end. This season, I have been joined on the podcast by actor Sanjay Lago and musician Magiker to help me cover things. But today, for the finale, we're doing something, well, a wee bit different, but also quite traditional. If you regularly listen to the podcast, you might have guessed what's already happening. No one could really join me to dig deep into a Traitors finale other than the reality TV guru himself. It's David Bloomberg! David, welcome back to the Trader. How are
Thank
you?
you. Thank you. Yes, we're going back to our old roots of me appearing on the finale since I was, I nobody had told me the Traders India had not contacted me and said you need to be available during these weeks. So I had planned travels around the country to visit my kids during this time.
Yeah.
But Magiker and Sanjay did a great job, as did you. Of course, that goes without
Thanks.
saying.
But you have now you've caught up with the series.
Yes.
You're ready for this finale. But I'm sure you've got lots of thoughts. I'll maybe just use the opportunity now to let listeners know that season 2 of Traitors India has officially been commissioned. It's out there in the press. Amazon Prime have given it the green light. I am going to read just a little from an article in Times of India. It says, following an overwhelming response to the primary season of The Traitors, the makers have already announced season 2 of, they've called it a drama. I think it's not, maybe that's sort of lost in translation, hosted by Karan Johar. Um, uh, Nikhil Maddock, director and head of Originals Prime Video India, shared, it's been incredibly rewarding to see The Traitors strike such a powerful chord with audiences across India, with its distinctive mix of tension, strategy, and emotional honesty, brought to life by a versatile host and a stellar lineup of players who've brought their A game to the show. The series has emerged as a true breakout. On it goes, we're thrilled to begin work on season 2 and take the experience to the next level. So that's pretty good. Before the season had even finished, they
Yeah.
had announced this, so I'm really happy about that. David, what are your you've got 9 episodes to catch up on.
Yes.
What tell us your thoughts on this season? Because haven't spoken to you much. We've sent a few messages,
Right.
but I don't really know your impression of how it's all been.
Well, first, just because there may be some new viewers and listeners here who maybe actually don't know who I
Oh,
am.
of course.
Usually we do this and I say, probably people know who I am. But I have been covering reality TV for over 25 years at this point, online and newspaper columns, on my own reality TV websites, and for almost 10 years in podcasts. Also, I post reality TV videos on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram as at David Bloomberg, and I will talk about the topic anywhere anyone will listen. I will say that the videos for this show on YouTube have been doing very well and better than many other things that I've been posting. Not necessarily on the other two, but that's also possibly because I'm able to tag them as India in
Sure.
YouTube.
Yeah.
So there's definitely that audience out there. Um, and I'm just sad that I wasn't able to follow from the beginning, so I could have posted more videos because, as I said, I was traveling and I wasn't able to necessarily put aside the time. But the season so far, so I do have a number of thoughts.
Yeah.
I just enjoyed the way everyone played so hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought you would.
And some of this I know you and Magiker have talked about, but even though they're celebrities, they are playing this game. Even though I think if I understood correctly, there were at least a couple of Bollywood housewives. there are none of these Bravo housewives there who come in and they just want to wear pretty dresses and they have no idea what the game is about. It's clear almost all or all of them prepared well
Yeah.
for this show. They studied up on it. They were quoting things from previous, UK and US seasons. It was a joy to watch them play the game.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there was none of this nonsense of, oh, we're just going to go to the end and split the money and I'll be fine. And, you know, no, they were, um, but there were also some interesting things about it being, whether it was this group or, a difference in celebrities in India. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But there was an argument back in episode 3. And I believe if I'm right, it was Orphe talking about Apurva, the rebel kid, and oh, she doesn't, her celebrity isn't anywhere near mine, and I don't need to deal with her and stuff like that. I could only imagine the backlash that would get in a U.S. celebrity season.
Yeah.
Like if some washed up actor was on there saying it about a reality TV person, or one reality TV person saying it about another one. I won my season and they didn't even make it to the end. So why are they here? But even with that, they all really wanted to win the game.
Yeah.
Some of them played so hard they spiraled out of control.
Yeah.
Like Raftar back in episode 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there were public alliances, or as they call, what did they call them? Voting banks.
Yeah, voting
which
banks.
is a new term that I had never heard before, but I liked it. I like it better than there's a show here on Fox in the U.S. called The Snake.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's clear they didn't want to use the word alliances, so they talk about pacts.
Okay.
I have a pact with you, and it just sounds so forced. But then, as things went along, when Apurva got that first traitor right, she decided she was Sherlock Holmes and she could suss out every single traitor, and she was wrong about them all, which was hilarious. So yeah, some of these are just random thoughts as I'm going through here. Another fun one was Elnaz repeatedly pretending to be completely clueless in the game.
Huh?
Now, I don't think we knew until her final episode, and you guys discussed this a bit, that that Hindi was not her primary language.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it would have even been better to know that early as a reason that she was playing, I don't know if dumb, but not understanding because it was in Hindi.
Yeah.
But to me, it was like, and I know this is impossible because of timing, but it was like she watched Genius Game and saw Bex and Bodalia and decided to model her character on them. So that's a very niche reference only for those who have watched our Genius Game podcasts. Yeah. So, and then on top of it, not only were the arguments in the house great, but the arguments at the Circle of Shock, just amazing. I mean, truly amazing. And they've been so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
Now, going back to Elnaz, I forgot about this one. Whenever I think I've discussed before, whenever I play Mafia and I see someone who pretends not to know what's going on. Oh, how many Mafia are there in this game? What are the special properties of this character? Who can do what? Huh? I always suspect they're in the Mafia. And I'm almost always right, because that's the way people play it, especially newer players. They figure that's their way of avoiding suspicion, but it immediately turns my suspicion on. So yes, I would have been, if I were in this house, I would have immediately been suspicious of Elnaz.
Yeah.
Some other things. It was interesting that they had Purav murder in plain sight when he was the last traitor left. I think it must have been because it was already set up. props to him in the way he did it by throwing that picture at the last minute. I think it would have been kind of funny if he had missed and it had bounced and not gone into the
Yeah.
fountain or something like that. Um, Although I do wonder if they would have altered that a little bit,
Yeah.
you know.
Some runner comes on, throws it
Yeah.
in, they cut
Yeah.
together. Yeah, yeah.
It's like the commercials where you know that this celebrity isn't, shooting a basketball from somewhere. So they'd show him, throwing it. And then all of a sudden you'd see it land in the fountain, whether it
Yeah.
did or not. Um, Subtitles. Some of the subtitles. Now, obviously, I don't know what the Hindi to English subtitles are saying. I believe you may have someone who does, who has a few words to share with us later.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
But the English to English, when they moved into English with certain things, they were hilarious. Whenever they dropped an F bomb, and so I picked out the two funniest ones. One was Sufi saying, "Go fuck yourself." And the subtitle was "Do whatever you want," which doesn't quite carry
Yeah.
the same weight.
It's so mild. Yeah.
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 And then also Sufi saying "fucking disrespectful bitch." And the subtitle says, "You are disrespectful."
Yeah, it's been a favorite point
Yeah.
for a lot of fans of the show. Yeah.
So I think that Amazon shouldn't have bothered to subtitle those particular lines. It's very funny. I could only imagine, like I said, what they've left out of the Hindi to English
Oh yeah.
versions.
Well, we're gonna find out more about that later,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah.
Um, Now, it's, for a couple of the players, I had some thoughts. Going into this, I really felt like Nikita wasn't even in the game. I kept forgetting she was there. uh, until she suddenly spoke up about rejecting the recruitment days earlier, and then going through all the rules and how she knew there must have been only one black male, or how she knew there must have been a black male
Yeah.
because there was only one traitor left. And I feel like this is something we rarely see on any season, whether they're doing it or not. I think usually, like especially US, doesn't like to show us that stuff.
Yeah.
They avoid all the meta of the game in favor of housewives. And again, it just goes back to what I was saying earlier, how well the players knew what they were doing overall. Another non-entity was Sudanshu, and I believe you guys talked about the same thing.
Yeah, I have
Uh,
more to say about Sudanshu today, but yes.
yeah. And then the last thing, so I guess I didn't really pay attention to a lot of their titles, like their jobs. But I noticed Harsh is a
Mhm.
stand-up comedian.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
He may be the least funny stand-up comedian ever because I don't remember him saying anything funny.
Yeah, that's true. I also hadn't realized that until an episode or two ago, and I
Hmm.
checked what he was famous for. But I guess he's not on stage.
Right.
Maybe a lot of comedians, if they're not on, they probably do appear quite ordinary. I don't know. I don't know.
I guess, but I just feel like most stand-up comedians are funny
Or sort of
generally.
naturally funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like I mean, like Sufi was funny all the time.
yeah.
You
That's
know?
true.
Now he's different. He's a content creator. But
Yeah.
uh so yeah, it was just, I was like, huh, okay. It'll be interesting to see if he does a routine about the traders
Yeah.
in his comedy act. Not that
Yeah.
I'd be able to understand it, probably.
So, yeah, a lot of what it's interesting hearing from you. It's interesting hearing that you picked out a lot of the things that struck me as well, and actually a
Right.
couple of things that you mentioned, David. We've got listener questions about later, particularly one
Okay.
about subtitles for you, actually, David. And I've
Mm.
not sprung this on you yet. It will be a surprise. We're at the finale. We're almost ready to dive into it together. Before we do, there are a lot of listener comments to cover. Before we even get there, there's so many comments today. Either it means you guys listening are really engaged, or I just keep getting things so badly wrong you feel compelled to keep me in line. So I'm going to run through these. First of all, there were just some interesting predictions about how the episode 9 cliffhanger would turn out because Magiker and I just assumed, well, we were waiting on Urfi deciding was she going to pick Apurva or Harsh, but a couple of listeners suggested something different could happen. Shan on Spotify said, I feel like Urfi voted for a completely random person, and Apurva's gone. Because of the timing of the episodes, there wouldn't be enough time to do a tiebreak, plus murder, plus fire of truth. Also, if Harsh doesn't go, uh, they'll go after each other and both will get voted out, and sadly, the innocent wins. Interesting mix of predictions there from Shan. Well, at least one of them may have been spot on. And then it's just a simple story on YouTube. Nice username. Says my prediction for episode 10 is I don't think Urfi is voting for either Harsh or Apurva. As you mentioned, if she'd voted for Harsh, it would have been a tie, and that would have been the cliffhanger. But she's already said she doesn't think Apurva's a traitor, and she's too in love with Harsh to vote for him. She's probably voting for someone else entirely. Now that we know that actually isn't what happens, but it's funny that a couple of people picked up on the idea that there probably wasn't going to be a tie break just because of the timing of there would be too much to then fit in. And if there's a tie break, the last episode was only 50 minutes long, which was the shortest one, I
Hmm.
think. So why wouldn't they have just included that? So maybe there was a bit of a clue if I had used logic that there probably wasn't going to be a tie break.
Well, I think we had the same thing in the Traitors US.
Yeah, there
The
was a
last season of the Traitors
yeah,
US, it did
something.
a cliffhanger before what could have been a tie. And we had the same
Yeah,
debate.
yeah.
Like, oh, if it was a tie, they would show the tie, and that, and I feel like we were wrong there, actually, but I don't remember for sure.
Yeah, it was with maybe I shouldn't spoil it. It
Brittany.
was it was Brittany
Oh,
and
whoops.
yeah, yeah.
He says as I
Well,
spoil.
Brittany was
Yeah.
involved in it. We're
Yes.
not saying
Yes.
it was all about Brittany's vote, what she was going to
Right.
do. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So, a few more comments. There's a correction from E. Anderson on YouTube, who, has addressed something that I probably got wrong in the last episode. They've said, Matthew, I could be misremembering it, but I'm pretty sure Harsh's reasoning for picking Purav is one of the three names. This is in the mission, where they had to guess who had
Hmm.
extinguished their torch. And I think I misunderstood what Harsh was doing. I thought Harsh was on to Purav and deliberately picked his name to call him out. Actually, I think
Oh,
that's not what happened.
no.
Um, uh, his reason for picking Purav was the exact opposite of what you said. He thought the other two would be right and deliberately chose one quote unquote wrong answer, not
Hmm.
realizing Purav was actually one of the correct answers. They even cut to Purav looking guilty as he says his name, but he turns away to not tip him off. So basically, if he'd gotten all three correct, he would have known immediately that Purav was going to sacrifice him later. But Purav got lucky that one of the other two was incorrect, so I misinterpreted that scene. Uh, we also had some input on the tiebreaker discussion from, Harry on Instagram sent me this, but it was a screenshot of someone, I think on Blue Sky, someone called Benjamin Boba, whose real name is Alexander, so I'm confusing you. Harry sent me something from Benjamin, who's actually called Alexander, and they said, in one foreign, because Magiker and I were talking about we've speculated about this before, David, on the podcast. How do they break a tiebreak if it just keeps
Hmm.
coming to a deadlock? So Benjamin Boba says in one foreign season, a deadlock tie was decided by the player who had the most votes against them previously going home. So like they go back to all the previous round
Hmm.
tables or circles of Shack and adding up cumulatively who's had the most in that person. So maybe that could have been how they would have done it here. Um,
Yeah,
there's
I feel like, I mean, we don't know obviously if, what would happen in Traders India, but I feel like when it almost happened in UK and US, it was, I believe the words random draw
yeah,
were used
yeah,
because we were talking about would it be a random draw between those two or a random draw amongst the other players like happens on Survivor?
yeah, yeah. So, and I get it, it seems like different franchises probably have their different ways of doing things.
Hmm.
In addition to our chat about the possibility of, or the history of, fake eliminated players actually winning, which is funny because I read this comment before I saw the finale episode,
Yeah.
and hey, look what happened. This is Dexter Delvin again on YouTube. Dexter Delvin has commented before, listens regularly. They've said, I found out there was another season where a fake eliminated player won. Spoilers below. Anyone who doesn't want to know this, skip ahead a little bit. Poland season one and Israel season one. So that's two out of nine seasons before India season one, where a fake eliminated player has won. There was also a season with an actual starting elimination. That was Czech Republic season one. I think that means someone for real was eliminated straight away and
Hmm.
never came back. So there we go. And finally, in addition to our chat last time about Apurva saying it at the circle, I am a traitor, just explicitly saying it,
Oh, yes.
Kelsey on Instagram sent me a message to say, I was shocked Apurva said she was a traitor, by the way. I've only seen traitors say it in jest, like, oh yeah, haha, I murdered her, haha. But in one of the Belgian seasons, a traitor said, if you vote me out, you're guaranteed to catch a traitor. I am a traitor. The faithful spared him to banish him at the next round table, but he was disqualified for revealing himself. It was so bizarre. He was fed up with his fellow traitor, who threw the third traitor under the bus. He became paranoid, trusted nobody. He just went bonkers at the next round table. He wanted the faithful to win. In interviews after, he expressed regret, especially towards production for ruining the show. So there we go. Something
Yeah, and
interesting
I
has
mean
happened there.
we know they take the traitor's oath, which the oath itself is obviously not binding, but I'm sure they signed something also that says you will not, do this. And so, yeah, it's it's funny because I have told the story before. The first ever game of Mafia that I played was a giant game, like I don't know, 30 people or something like that in someone's backyard.
Hmm.
And one guy who was not also familiar with the game, but was, at least I think he wasn't. At the very beginning, he said, yeah, I'm in the mafia. And everybody was like, yeah, 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 be quiet. Now, I think that I voted for him right then. I was like, well, if you're going to say you're in the mafia, then I'm going to vote for you. No one took him seriously. And he won against me in the end as the mafia. He was the mafia. I was the doctor.
There you go. Uh,
So,
yeah, maybe there's a trick to that. But
yeah,
yes, you're right. You in traitors, you're not really allowed to say, are you?
right.
I we do have more listener comments for later in the episode. A couple of questions to think about now that we've watched it all. But I think we are finally, after like 20 minutes, ready to actually talk about the finale episode of Traitors India Series 1. To start with, we have, our season recap. We've got some nice cinematic shots, including like lots of incredible sweeping drone shots of the beautiful palace. We're reminded Elnaz, Purav, Raj were our OG traitors. That seems like so long ago that Raj was here. And because he was eliminated at the very first circle of Shaq. It then took a long time to eliminate the next, and that was Elnaz. We see clips of various missions along the way. Players have been murdered and voted out. Most recently, Purav recruited Harsh, who very quickly faced trouble, and we left the Circle of Shaq at a very tense moment. Apurva had 4 votes and Harsh had 3, in part due to Purav's double vote with the dagger, which I kept forgetting about, and Urfi was the only player left to vote. So here we are, we're right back at that moment, and we kind of get a repeat of Urfi fooling us a little bit. She says, I don't think Apurva's the traitor. I'm sorry, but I'm totally confused. And then she just goes ahead and votes for Apurva anyway.
Yes.
So, and Apurva's pretty much, she was resigned. She'd kind of given up. I think she just, not given up, but I think she knew what was going
No,
to
I
happen. And
think
there
give it
was,
up. I mean, she even had that confessional last episode saying like, I did this, I did that, I did that. I've played a good game. I'm ready to go.
yeah, yeah. I guess what, I mean, she wasn't, I don't think she was dejected about it. I think she had just accepted, it's over
Right.
for me. What's the point? Hey,
Right.
I've had a fun time.
Yeah.
Like she kind of just didn't care about it anymore.
Hmm.
She knew it was going to happen. And she stands to give her speech, and Urfi's sort of like shaking her head as if to say, "Guys, this is wrong." But too late, Urfi. Like, you didn't
Yeah.
need to vote for her. She says, "I lied a lot during this game, a lot." I think mainly she's probably talking about her shield bluffs, which I thought were very
Right.
clever both times. She says, I won't stand here and tell any lies now. I don't love you all. I don't wish to see all of you again, which is great. I love a few of you, Sufi, Janat, and now Purav. And she's saying to him, please win this for me. You can. You have the math. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Wait till she finds out.
Yeah.
And she's saying she's grateful. She's had a great time. And there are some real life traitors people that I never crossed paths with, and I'm glad I never did. It just made me more grateful for my friends. Karan asks the question, are you a traitor or an innocent? I will never be a traitor. I'm an innocent. Off she goes. And there's
Yes,
kind of just silence around the table.
because Urfi knew she was talking about her, you know, among the other people.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was funny because when she gave that speech, when I would leave a poker game, lots of people, as they were leaving, just a regular game, not a, well, even a tournament, a lot of people would say, good luck to all of you, which makes no sense. Not everyone can have good luck.
Right.
You know, it's a zero sum game, you know. So when I would leave, I would always say, good luck to some of you. You know who you are. And
Yeah.
then I would leave, you know, and people would be like, ooh.
Yeah. People do it a lot on reality shows, especially like Big Brother in the UK, and when
Yeah.
someone gets evicted and they'll say, good luck, everyone. I think,
Yeah.
well, what does that mean? Or,
Right.
in a talent show and it's the final
Hmm.
two, and you'll see the two contestants say to each other, good luck, yeah, good luck. And I think, well,
Yeah.
surely you want to win. Why are you wishing
Right.
them good luck? So,
So this was much more honest and
yeah,
appropriate to her character.
yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I don't love you all.
Yeah.
Uh, Purva was my favorite player.
Hmm.
She really made me laugh, and I thought she was clever, and just a fun character to watch, even though she got a lot wrong as well sometimes.
Hmm.
And Nikita, we see her in her MIV, her master interview, saying, "Well, that's it. The innocents have lost. The traitors have won the game. Ha
Yeah.
ha! Little does she know." Um, and Karan reveals that the traitors will meet in the secret tower and there will be another murder. I was quite surprised. Magiker and I both speculated last time and just thought, oh yeah, there's no more murder. That's it. Uh,
Well,
so, uh,
so they were down to what, six at this point?
yeah.
And
Six
I
now.
think the murders always stop at five. So I guess it does make sense that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why we came to that conclusion, but yeah, I was a little surprised here. And Karan even gives the traitors a sort of slow clap.
Hmm.
Urfi says in her confessional, even though Apurv isn't a traitor, I don't feel bad about her leaving.
Yeah.
So there's no love lost there. Although I
Mhm.
did think, like, don't you even want like the numbers of innocent to help you? Come on, Urfi.
Well, that would presume they would work together. I don't know.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Like later on, to skip ahead, if Orphe would have told Apurva the same thing she ends up telling Nikita,
Hmm.
I don't know that Apurva would have believed her or worked
Yeah,
with her.
yeah, that's very true. Because she was so close to Purav by that point.
Right.
Maybe she just, yeah,
Yeah.
wouldn't have believed that. Jasmine, for about the 100th time this season, tells us, I'm not smart enough to be a player. I've been
Hmm.
manipulated every episode. She then confirms this by telling us Urfi's a traitor. I
I
went,
had someone, I had
uh,
posted one of my videos about Jasmine not understanding how you play for yourself in this game.
yeah, yeah.
When someone took the 10,000 instead, you know, the money instead, and someone commented on TikTok. I think, well, TikTok or Instagram. I think Jasmine is just pretending, and
Oh
I
no, no,
decided
no,
not
no.
to reply, but it's like, no,
She
no,
is not
yeah,
pretending. No way. No, absolutely not. If she was pretending, I mean, wait, sure, this now would be the time to reveal, haha,
right.
actually, I've been. No, there was no pretend.
Especially since the entire time we've heard from Elnaz, like, I'm playing this role, I'm pretending, I'm acting. This is the greatest acting job of my life, you
Yeah,
know, and so
no, there is no pretending here.
no.
Harsh gets up, they're all leaving the circle, and he describes Purav as a villainous man. And I thought here, surely these two cannot win together. Like, I could not see those two trusting one another after this. Uh, Well, I mean, the
Yeah.
the episode goes an interesting way, but I thought there was just no way back for them, but I was kind of wrong. And the title card comes up, the traitors. Here we go, the rest of the
Hmm.
main episode. So it's post circle. We're off into the palace. Purav's pacing the courtyard, acting like, no one listens to me. Oh man, I can't believe you voted out Purva. And in his confessional, he says, there's this really sort of genuine moment from him. He says, I just want the game to end now. He's
Hmm.
really struggling. He looks genuinely upset. And he's like, I don't even if I win, I'm not going to be happy. He says, what will I do with that joy? It's, the mental struggle of the game is really getting to him at this point. Urfi talks to Harsh and she tells him, I will never write your name. And I thought, what? You can't say that to people in this game. What? And also at this point, after you've just got,
Yes.
I just thought, open your eyes. Like, you've
Well, you
just
could tell
eliminated
people that.
Apurva.
You could tell people that as a way to make sure they don't write your name down. But
I
I
think she
think at that
meant it
moment she,
though.
oh yeah, yeah, I absolutely think she mentioned. Going back to Purav,
Yeah.
I started to wonder if he was going to go down the path of the UK trader from season one,
Hmm. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
whose name is suddenly escaping me.
Is it Wilf?
Wilf,
Yeah.
Wilf,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, who just fell apart at the end,
Yeah.
and just because it all weighed too heavily on him. So as I was watching, I was like, "Ooh, are we going to have that happen again?" It didn't, but in that moment with that confessional, I thought we might.
Yeah. It was strange because actually, then something happens later in the episode which made me think, oh, maybe he's not falling apart.
Right? Yeah, he's
There was
back.
a strange sort of shifting
Hmm.
of I don't know when they filmed what bit, but anyway.
Yeah,
Uh, and it's funny, even when Urfi says to Harsh, I'll never write your name, even he says, well, you do what you want. I think
yeah,
he's practically saying, you can vote for me. Like, I'm not making you do
yeah.
that. So I thought, well, who do you think the traitors are then? But
Well, the answer is Sudanshu.
Sudanshu, yeah,
We
suspicion suddenly comes
yes.
round to him.
Yeah, because he had gotten no content, so they had to, give him some, and and then of course he has been saying that Orphe is one, and so yeah, they talk about each other. They point the finger at each other.
Yeah, yeah, and he uses that term you mentioned earlier,
Vote
the
bank.
the idea of a vote bank. He's saying
Yeah.
to Jasmine, it's 100% Urfi. She's created this vote bank, and I can follow that logic, sure.
Hmm.
Like it would seem like if she was a clever traitor, she could have engineered all of this.
Oh yeah,
But
it's
but
what a good. I mean, it's what a good trader should do is make an alliance to protect yourself. I mean, Sandra talked about it in the Traders US too,
yeah,
where she was using the billiard balls to show
yeah,
what the
yeah,
alliance, and she wasn't a trader. She was explaining what, a trader would do.
yeah, and it's exactly what Apurva's defense was, which no one listened to. She was like, it makes no sense for me to be a traitor because I have no one left apart from
Right.
Purav, who I've kind of befriended very recently.
Hmm.
She's like, why would I have left myself in this situation? But of course, Jasmine, it was just completely over her head. Um, so yeah, generally suspicion is on Sudanshu now. We even have Harsh saying, oh, I suspected him from day one. And actually, that could be true because
Yeah.
Harsh wasn't a traitor at the start, so
Right.
maybe he did feel that way. It's time for Secret Tower. I thought this could be really awkward. Um,
I thought the same thing. I did think Purav would have some sort of good rationale
yeah,
to do it, and he did. Which I thought he was going to say, "Oh, I knew the votes were going that way, and I just wanted to look like we were against each other." I think he said something similar to that.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, he tries to. I think he tries to convince Harsh that he just didn't have a choice. He's like, well, he uses this phrase. He says the whole game would have flipped, and
Hmm.
I didn't really know what he meant, other than maybe I think he just meant I couldn't have voted for Apurva. It would have looked so weird that me and her were so close, and then suddenly I vote for her. I
Hmm.
think he was just like, well, you were kind of the next person that everybody was talking about, so it would have looked suspicious if I hadn't voted for either of you. So I think that's what he meant.
Right.
Like I kind of just had to. And they argue back and forth about it, and eventually Harsh says, "Look, if you vote for me tomorrow, that's it. I'm done. I'm out." And Purav say, "No, no, no, I won't. I won't. Now Sudanshu, he's the target. Let's do that."
Hmm.
And Harsh is like, "Well, no, Sudanshu's telling other people about me." And he talks about Urfi saying she's never going to vote for him. So Purav's got this new plan. He's like, no, like here's the plan now. I want us both to win together. And to do that, we have to get Sudanshu out next. And then that'll leave sort of two versus two, because they're also going to murder someone tonight. Uh, and he's saying, well, all we need to do is convince people then that Nikita, I wondered if this would ever come back round. Nikita made up the lie about the
Hmm.
traitor invitation. We'll say that she just made that up. So she actually, it's because she's the traitor. I I can't see people falling for that. I think it
No,
wasn't a great plan of Purav's here.
no, I didn't understand it at all because they know the rules. If any
Yeah,
group of players knows the rules, it's these players.
yeah,
If there were only one, they would have to blackmail at that point. So for part of their plan was to say, "Oh no, there's only one traitor left."
yeah,
It's like, no, that doesn't even begin to make sense. There's no situation where there would have only been one traitor left at this point.
yeah. It just wouldn't have made sense. Uh, they eventually choose their murder victim very quickly. There's not really any discussion about it
Right.
because I thought it was pretty obvious. It was either going to be Urfi or Jasmine because
Yeah.
they wanted to keep the other two rounds to make them sort of scapegoats. And I even thought surely it's Jasmine because of Urfi's silly promise
Right.
to never vote harsh. I thought it's got to be Jasmine, right?
Yeah, and I think we later, I mean, we knew it somewhat here, but I think we later learned they considered Urfi to be their useful fool,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. Which then it ends up in a way being their downfall, I suppose,
Yes.
because they perhaps get too confident.
Yes.
So we get to breakfast. Urfi's first. She's telling us she thinks the traitor's either Sudanshu or Nikita. So far, yes, maybe Harsh and Purav's plan will work. Door knocks, and Urfi thinks it's Jasmine, but actually it's Purav, and he's telling her, well, if I'm still alive, then Harsh isn't a traitor. Because his logic is, well, I voted for Harsh last night
Hmm.
twice, so if he's the traitor, sure, he would have killed me. Why would he not have? And he starts telling her he suspected Sudanshu from day one, although he doesn't have, he's famous for not mentioning people.
Right.
Like, he doesn't name suspects. And he's saying, "Oh, this makes sense. Here's why Sudanshu was so defensive of Elnaz before she went." It doesn't take any convincing because Urfi is already on board with
Right.
this, and she thinks if Jasmine is murdered, it proves that Sudanshu is the traitor. Harsh arrives next, Urfi goes nuts, then it's Nikita, and she's saying she's got no idea how she survives because she always gets everything wrong. Very true. So Purav even starts to play on this, and he starts calling her Elnaz 2.0. He's like, hey, you're like the way Elnaz played. There's a knock on the door. It's Sudanshu. Not really a surprise. Jasmine's
Right.
gone. We see her receiving her letter. She says, I knew I'd be murdered. And she is wrong until the bitter end. She says, when Urfi told me, just don't write Harsh's name today, I'll handle it tomorrow, I knew this was the last night when I was still useful to her. So, Jasmine. So she's not even in the game and she's wrong. So Karan arrives. Rise and shine. It's Doka time for the last time. They even all chip it. They all say it together. They
Yes.
know the words. Jasmine's picture is smashed. Hooray! Final time. He reminds them that the game works by, they all keep eliminating until they decide to end it or until there are only two left. And of course, if everyone left is innocent, they share the prize. If even one traitor remains, they take everything for themselves. He tells them they're going to the desert today and gives them a clue. Remember, the more you try to hold on to time and sand, the more they slip through your fingers. And it's kind of it for breakfast. We get Nikita saying she's sure it's Purav and Sudanshu. So I think even if she's saying this, like Sudanshu's, I thought Sudanshu's definitely going.
Hmm.
I thought I was so, my predictions kept flipping throughout the episode, actually. I thought, right, Sedenshi's definitely going tonight. There's just no doubt about it. And actually, I think she's right. At this point, it's like maybe 10, 15 minutes into the episode, I thought, well, a traitor's going to win. It's a foregone conclusion. How could the innocent ever win now?
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, it would have taken something monumental to flip the game.
Yeah, and
Mm.
kind of does. So after breakfast, there are some discussions around the palace. They're talking about whether or not there are two traitors. I mean, they obviously know there's definitely one. A, because that's kind of just the format of the show, and
Hmm.
B, someone murdered Jasmine last night, so there's got to be a
Right.
traitor. Unless Jasmine just decided that she was too dumb and took herself out of the show. We do get a little bit of Nikita questioning Purav to his face directly because he never names anyone, and Urfi talks in her confessional about how he's been playing the game so smoothly. Now, at this point, I had a feeling Purav wasn't really in trouble. They were kind of just including this to at least pretend there was some jeopardy for
Right.
him, but I didn't believe there was any. I thought everybody's accusing everybody at this point. There only are
Right.
five of them, so there's probably something in the footage to use. But I just thought they're throwing this in there to lead us along, but Purav's not in trouble. Maybe that clip of Urfi was taken out of context, and she actually said it after something that happens later. I don't know. Sudanshu talks to Purav over snooker about how confidently he feels that Urfi's the traitor and that he wants to get it right for once in this game, which is awkward. He tells Nikita the same, and he tells Harsh, thinks it's Urfi. Purav then decides to stir things up by telling Urfi privately that Nikita has been saying she's the traitor. And I don't know if we actually saw that. I don't even know if that's true. Maybe it happened and they didn't capture it. I can't tell. Harsh joins in with this stirring of the pot and he brings Sudanshu into it. And it seems like, oh, they actually Harsh and Purav are working together. Maybe I was wrong
Hmm.
earlier. They have put last night behind them and they are trying to win it as a pair. So okay. But then we get Urfi saying, "This is making me very suspicious. Why are both of them cornering me and telling me that other people are putting my name?" So she seemed like she was starting to pick up on this being quite obvious behavior.
Yeah, it was, they suddenly switched to a hard sell tactic. And you shouldn't switch up when you're this late in the game. Like
Yeah,
suddenly you're doing this, like what's going on here? Why are they acting differently?
yeah. And I don't think they needed to. Again, Urfi was sort of
Right.
blinded by Harsh, and she hadn't suggested she thought Purav was a prime suspect for her. So yeah, I don't think they needed to do this. Certainly not both of them. Maybe one of them drop a couple
Hmm.
of things, but so it's time for the mission. Karan meets them literally in a desert. It's not just some sort of fake set. They are really in the wilderness and tells them that 15 lakh rupees are available. That's 1.5 million rupees. It's a giant puzzle with pieces spread all over this desert, and they will join up to make a picture of what is the same design as on the Circle of Shat table. They'll only have 15 minutes though. Once they complete the puzzle, they have to press a big plunger, and the puzzle will light up with fire. Kran bangs a gong. They all split up. Purav and Nikita take quads. They're racing around. Urfi sort of slides down a dune. Yeah.
Quads. Those are ATVs for US listeners.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I, yeah, I call it like a quad bike. I have no idea
Yeah.
what they are. And I thought, did they have to like check if people could, did they have to train them how to use these first? Like, I don't know, most people could just jump on them and use them. Um, the, it turns out the puzzle pieces are actually really heavy. It's quite a demanding task physically. Sudanshu's looking at the guides to the puzzle and he's giving them advice. They collect all the pieces painfully. It's really hot, they're heavy, they're struggling to piece them together. It looks like Sudanshu's not doing a great job of guiding them. Even Karan is yelling at them. But I thought, surely they're not going to let them fail the last mission. And they have
Right.
failed a couple of them this season, but not the last one,
Right.
surely.
And 15 minutes seems like such a short time
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
this. And of course they barely got it, but who was maintaining the clock? Oh, the host,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So it's like, okay.
Yeah, of course. They complete
Hmm.
the puzzle, they run up the hill, yeah, just in the nick of time, push the plunger, hooray. It does look pretty, it lights up in flames. It's quite cool.
It lights
Um
up in flames after someone has adjusted it because when they actually left it, it was not fully lined up. It was together, but it was not fully lined up in a
yeah.
way that would have allowed that star to
Yeah.
you know, light up so nicely.
Yeah, I did think there's no way, like, I don't know how it works. I don't know what the
Hmm.
mechanics are, but I thought there's no way they just aligned those pieces and then left it and it magically worked. Like, someone had to
Yeah,
pause and step in and make sure it would go off okay.
right.
So, yeah, I mean, the fire was pretty cool. I
Hmm.
kind of thought that we're going to hear, we have a nice little video message later from someone familiar who may disagree with me here. I didn't think it was that big a scale of mission for the finale. Like, before we've seen
Right.
things in helicopters and people jumping into lakes and and speedboats. I don't know. I thought this could have been a mission like on any episode. But
Especially with a 15-minute time limit, it kind of
yeah,
shows you it's not an epic final challenge,
yeah,
like you almost need something that's going to take a long time, but maybe, I mean, I don't know how far away the desert was
mm,
from the palace. Maybe they needed all of that as travel time
yeah,
just to
yeah,
get there and back.
yeah. Could be. So the total prize fund for the whole game is now 7,005,000 rupees. Had a little check of the equivalents. That's about
Hmm.
£60,000 or $80,000. It's not enormous compared to the UK and US prizes, especially the US, but
Mm,
the players seem pretty excited about that, especially like Purav. He's a content creator, so
right.
he seems like this is a huge amount of money to him. So
Yeah. And that's something, again, that sets it apart from something like US traders, which is the money did mean something,
mhm,
which clearly it did not. The prize money did not mean much to a lot of the players after they, got their appearance fees
yeah,
on the Traders US.
yeah,
Whereas now I think we'll later find out it doesn't mean much to at least one of the people who wins, but uh, they still played hard.
yeah,
Whereas I don't think the same can always be said about the US traders.
yeah, and maybe. In the US, there's sort of tax that comes into play when you win a
Yes,
prize. Maybe that operates differently in India. Maybe their appearance fees aren't as high as
right.
US celebrities. Who knows?
I would
Uh,
almost have to guess that they're not nearly as high,
yeah.
But by the way, speaking of news, I don't know if you know this, but the U.S. Traders season 4 just finished filming. The
Ah, right.
players, the
Yeah.
players have just gotten back as of yesterday, or maybe the day before, and they just
Okay.
got onto social media. But
Yeah.
supposedly, sorry, this should have gone in the news area. Supposedly, the end of filming was delayed by a day
Oh.
because there was a funeral at that
Oh,
location. And
wow.
so they asked the traders to pause filming
Okay.
for one day. So a real funeral,
Yes.
supposedly.
Kind of.
Supposedly. I've seen a few people reference this in a news article about it.
Wow.
So
Quite ironic.
yeah, I know. That's what I was like, oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, that I guess that makes sense. I knew that they were in Scotland to film. I guess
Hmm.
that kind of prompted the reveal of the official cast list because it was going to
Yes,
come out anyway.
right.
Um, and I knew that UK Celebrity one was done filming, so I actually yeah I think they've probably moved right on to the civilian filming. They tend to use most of the same crew, so it's probably now the
So
UK.
did they do UK celebrity, then immediately US, then immediately UK
Not immediately. There was a bit of a
non-celebrity?
gap actually between
Hmm.
UK Celebrity and US. UK
Okay.
Celebrity finished like a month or two ago. Yeah,
Really?
so
I'm
yeah,
surprised. I guess
bit of a break.
maybe they couldn't rent the
Yeah, yeah,
cabin back to back in the right,
yeah,
in that
something
way. The
going on.
cabin, the cabin, what castle, whatever they call it,
Cabin
mansion.
Castle, yeah.
Yeah.
All the same compared to this Indian palace.
Yeah.
Uh, and speaking of the palace, we're heading back there. And, Harsh is telling us that his success or failure now depends on whether his people stay with him or act against him. His
Right.
people being Purav and Urfi. So back at the palace, here is where everything takes a strange and pretty significant twist.
Yes.
And we'll probably have an awful lot to say about this.
Yes.
This changes everything, I think.
Literally. Yes.
It's a weird one. Purav and Harsh are playing snooker.
Hmm.
Harsh is talking about being really stressed, whereas Purav is he's chill, he's happy, and this is what I was referencing earlier, that he doesn't
Right.
seem so stressed out anymore. He's having a great time, and then Urfi walks by, sees them in there, and sneaks back to eavesdrop. So I thought, oh, this is really bad for they need to be careful. They've obviously not spotted her. And they are quite openly chatting about their plan. Eliminate Sudanshu, go for
Hmm.
Nikita after that, insist that they're innocent. And crucially, they talk about Urfi and they basically say, she's going to help us. Um, or maybe we're going to have to turn against her and get her out. Let's see how it goes.
And
We'll use her to win, basically.
to win as a traders
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
They use the words, at least according to the subtitles,
yeah.
they use the words winning as traders together. Um, Now, one thing I noticed, because I just this morning, as we're recording this, posted a video, a shortened version of these scenes. I hadn't noticed on first viewing. She walks by in her clippity cloppity loud shoes and then takes them off and
Yes,
tiptoes back.
yeah,
I missed that on the initial viewing, but she was doing this quite on purpose,
yeah, yeah.
that um, now, as I watched it, and I know Magiker will have a few things to say about this later, but oh, I gave away who it was. Sorry. Who would ever talk about some secret and then give it away? I don't understand. Um, but I was not convinced she actually heard them talking when it was
Yeah.
made to look like they did, because how many times have we seen on the traders someone walking down the hall by a doorway and supposedly in that same time frame seeing or hearing something that it later turns out they did not actually see or hear.
Yeah.
Usually it has to do with the secret room or walking by a conversation or whatever. I just presumed this was the same situation. Oh, she didn't hear anything. They're trying to fool us.
Yeah.
um, but then she had these confessionals where she said she didn't want him to know she knew, and there were some other things, and I was just like, did she hear? Did she not? I was like double and triple
Yeah. Yeah.
rethinking it.
Yeah. I was the exact same. Yeah. At one point, she's saying, I can't believe it. I've been blindfolded. And I thought, wow, she has really heard that. But then even the way that she comes back to the room, opens the door and pushes it. And I thought, oh,
Right.
how much? Oh, that door was closed. How much could she have heard through a
Well, that
closed
was the
door?
outdoor. That was the outdoor door
Mm.
that she came in through.
Yeah.
That was like the courtyard door.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
was listening in a hallway in the
Uh,
other door.
okay.
She had walked fully around.
Yeah. So I think what we now know is, yeah, she did hear them. She heard
Right.
them saying they were traitors. It
Right.
was pretty explicit. But I think I think the editors, the producers have thought, well, we don't want we can't really reveal that because
Right.
now the rest of the episode's kind of pointless. Like we can't have the viewers know exactly what she heard and what she didn't. So they have played us a little bit to keep some suspense. So I think it's not an accident that you and I were both confused about what she'd heard and what she hadn't. I think that's
Right.
just kind of the way they had to play it. Um, so we get yeah, there's more of her in her confessional. She's got this funny phrase that she's torn between the show and her heart. So I think she means, do I like let my friends win or do I play the game
Hmm.
and play for myself? Yes, she doesn't. We don't see her actually say, "Oh my God, they're traitors." I heard them say it.
Right.
They pick and choose what little phrases to tease us, I guess. In the next scene, Urfi's talking to Harsh alone, and she tells him that Purav is a traitor and that she won't be voting for Sudanshu. So she, so I thought, all right, she does know, or she suddenly seems to know Purav's
Right.
the original traitor, and she talks about how he's been playing like Elnaz this whole time, and that night that he was drunk, he was pretending. So I still thought, how has she figured that out? Is it based? And then I thought maybe she just heard little bits of what they were saying, and Harsh spoke more quietly, Or maybe she, yeah, I thought, I didn't know what she knew, what she didn't know. Um, but then it becomes a little bit clearer. She says in her confessional that she implies that she actually does know they're both traitors, but she can't let them know that. So she's going to use Harsh to get rid of Purav, and then if she can make it to the end, she'll get Harsh out. So the first part of the plan is play on Harsh's friendship and conscience and
Hmm.
ask him to sort of prove that he's loyal to her. She even says it's funny. She goes from being like, well, do what you want, to like minutes later saying, you will vote for Purav and we'll win together. Do this one last favor for me.
Yeah.
Um,
And I still wasn't convinced at that point that this was like that she fully understood what was going on.
yeah,
And as things went on, I still wasn't, I was like, does she still think Harsh is being fooled by Purav?
yeah, it's tricky.
And part of it was that it was so obvious that, as longtime viewers of the Traitors, we kind of sometimes overthink things like, well, like you said earlier, well, there's no way they would have shown this to make it so obvious.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah.
yeah. And I mean, right after where we kind of head right to the circle of Shaq after this, it sort of felt like it. I mean, I guess there's a lot to fit in this final episode, so
Hmm.
there's not, and there only are five people, so there's not lots of discussion to watch. And so we're at the circle. We enter with Purav speaking very confidently to the viewer about his plan to win. We also have Sudanshu telling us he knows exactly what seems to be happening, that Urfi, Harsh, and Purav have planned
Hmm.
to team up on him. Obviously, he doesn't know. Things may have changed in the last few hours. Karan comes in, gives the usual preamble, but then drops this bomb that I've kind of been predicting or at least speculating about for a couple of episodes now that
Right.
the player who's eliminated tonight will not reveal their identity. And I've
Which
said, yeah, yeah,
I was going to say, it seems like Purav and Harsh weren't sure. Like they were well enough studied to know it could happen,
yeah,
but part of their discussion that was overheard was, well, what if he reveals he's an innocent? Well, then we'll just say Nikita is the traitor,
yeah, yeah,
and we'll follow that the whole way down.
yeah,
So
exactly.
they knew it was possible, but were making plans either way.
Yeah. And I'll just say again, I've said it before, I do feel like this mechanic helps the traitors more than anyone.
Oh yeah.
I really think it's just a little bit unfair. I mean, again, we've said this a million times. The
Hmm.
traitors have so many advantages anyway. I feel like this last one is just a little bit unfair. But then what happens happens, so maybe it
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, yeah. I think this was special
Yeah.
circumstances here, but yes.
So Nikita begins the discussions today. She asks Sudhanshu how he was so easily convinced to vote for Apurva yesterday when initially he'd intended to vote for Harsh. And Sudhanshu talks about her Apurva's behaviour at breakfast, the way that she acted like Purav was definitely going to be murdered, and maybe she was doing this because she was a traitor, she was pretending. Other players had talked about the same thing. Purav then comes in to also attack Sudhanshu, mainly about the way he defended Elnaz so much. And Sudhanshu makes a good point. He says, look, if I was really a traitor, I wouldn't be dumb enough to defend a fellow traitor so obviously like that when it was clear she was going to get voted out. So he's like, I would have just turned on her. Why would I have made myself stand out so much? He also says this. He goes from saying a clever thing to saying a really silly thing.
Yes.
He says his first principle in this game, or maybe even in life, is to immediately trust people until proven otherwise. I guess he hasn't been listening to Quran every
No.
single day telling them to trust no one.
But
Uh,
he also, as we'll get to later, he also says something that's the opposite of logic once they get to the fire pit.
oh, okay, okay. Oh, I might know what it is. Sure,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. So now here comes Urfi. She's ready to attack. She says that despite Sudhanshu messing things up, getting things so wrong so often at the circle, actually she doesn't think he's a traitor. And she just comes out and says it. I think Purav is the traitor. He has been playing us since day
Hmm.
one. Bam, she is going for it. She points out that on the night of Sufi's slow poison murder, that Purav was the only one around him that whole time except Apurva. And Apurva's gone. I mean, to be honest, that actually doesn't really prove anything. That's because they think The
Right.
murder
They
was like handing a drink to someone or
which
something like that.
which makes sense based on history. Like
Yeah,
or and also, based on biology. Like how do you poison
yeah.
someone by throwing their picture in?
And yeah,
That's almost more like voodoo magic than it is, you know. Um and so uh yeah, based on that, if you need to give a handshake or give a drink or all the things they have seen
right.
previously, it made logical sense.
Yeah. And I suppose in a way, they were the last to go to bed that
Hmm.
night, so he kind of was deliberately hanging around until those two
Right.
left. So there's something in it, but not quite. She also says it makes no sense that yesterday he double voted for Harsh, but today he's Harsh's bestie again, and he's claiming Harsh is innocent. What a weird turnaround.
Hmm.
And Sudanshu's sort of like, uh, yeah, actually, right, you're right, I guess. He says that Purav's always very evasive, won't ever name a suspect, and so on. And they argue a little. And Purav does this thing that he always do when he's directly accused. He sort of just sits back and smiles, and he's like, "Well, hey, haha, whatever." Like he doesn't sort of ever aggressively defend himself. He just acts like it's so nuts that anyone could accuse him, and laughs it off.
I mean, to be fair, it's worked to this point.
Well, I suppose that's true. Yeah, yeah. And it's time to vote already. There's not
Hmm.
that much more to it. And here we go. Sudhanshu votes for Purav. Purav, of course, votes for Sudhanshu. That's his plan. Urfi votes for Purav, of course. She was gonna. And Harsh turns. He votes for Purav.
Hmm.
I was really, really shocked here. And Nikita votes for Purav as well. It's a clean sweep,
Yeah.
essentially. I did not see this coming. I was last episode, my prediction was Traitor win, Purav's got it in the bag. So how it has all shifted. Even at the start of this episode, I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
Purav's got it, it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, he had a huge downfall. He went from being one of the most trusted to everyone turning on him like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so again, it comes back to did she really overhear? Or was it because of the hard sell? Or I think what the actual answer ends up being is the hard sell made her suspicious enough to listen in on them. And I
Yeah.
wonder if they hadn't done the hard sell, maybe she wouldn't have bothered doing that.
That's a great point, yeah.
So,
So yeah,
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 but he,
because I
he
did
just fell
wonder
off a cliff.
why I sort of wondered why, when she walked past them playing snooker,
Hmm.
it even occurred to because yeah, normally she wouldn't have been suspicious of them. Why would she have bothered eavesdropping? But yeah, maybe it
Right.
was the way they'd been behaving earlier, right? So Purav stands, comes to the what's called the Circle of Truth in some versions of the show, and we get this flashback of his time as a traitor throughout the season. He was the OG traitor. He made it right to the end almost last episode, gives his speech, I love you so much. We're all going to hang out after this. We're going to have lots of parties. And he says he's got no resentment or hatred towards anyone. Lots of love for everyone else as well. I think he means the players who've been eliminated before now. Love you guys. Best of luck. So sort of the opposite of an Apurva
Yeah.
speech. And off he goes. Of course, there is no reveal. Karan tells them from now on until the end, you have only two choices: Shaq or trust. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the word shack later, by the way, because I
Hmm.
have realized something. The end is very, very close. Off he goes. Harsh does his best job of pretending. He's saying to Urfi, "Oh, yeah, man, you better have got that right. He better have been the traitor."
Hmm.
And Nikita tells us the obvious that things would be so much easier, of course, if they really knew what Purav was, traitor or innocent. We then get this moment that I think we get a lot in UK. I don't know I can't remember if we get it in US where we get these interviews with Karan. He speaks individually to the players like he did way back at the start before they
I
chose.
feel like we get it in US,
Okay.
but sometimes they're not very revealing. Like if they
Hmm.
had done it in this most recent season of US, I don't think they would have been very revealing.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, so he's asking Harsh, did you ever think you would get to the end of the game as the sole traitor? And he uses a metaphor. He says, "We started this game as tenants. Now I'm the owner." And he says the title is more important than the money, which a couple of
Hmm.
people echo
Right.
later. And he compares it to a cricket game. He says, "You get the trophy first, you get the money later." kind of like in a yeah, like at Wimbledon. I think it's
Right.
different in the US Open. I think the US Open they get like an envelope and they go, "Here's your check for
No.
$2 million or whatever it is." But yeah, like at Wimbledon they'll do the traitor and they traitor the trophy and they kind of don't really mention how much money they're going to win, which is millions of pounds.
Hmm.
Um, we see Urfi, she gets quite emotional with Karan. She didn't think she'd get this far, and to be honest, neither did I. I thought she would be banished or eliminated before now, voted out. She talks about people doubting her, and this is going to prove them wrong. Maybe she's partly talking about Apurva. And she talked about this earlier in the episode as well, proving the haters wrong, proving the doubters wrong. Uh,
Yeah, I think, and I think it was here. I don't think it was a separate confessional, but she wonders, did she make it this far because of luck or brains or what? So I will answer for her. I think it was because she was such a distraction.
hmm,
She was causing fights. She had her voting, what was it called?
voting
Voting
bank.
bank.
Yeah,
I keep wanting to think of voting block, which is a survivor phrase, but uh, and that it made perfect sense for the traders to keep her.
yeah,
And plus, the two remaining traders, especially Harsh, had such a good relationship with her and thought she was completely fooled. So she would go to the end with them and lose. And so, do I think it was strategic brilliance on her part? As she called it, brains that made it this far for her? No, not at all. Until the last minute, as we will
yeah,
discuss.
yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And yet later, I have some praise for how she plays it in the end.
Yes.
Uh, so we see briefly Nikita just saying she thinks she deserves to win because she's managed to convince everyone that she's an innocent. Like, yeah, okay, fair enough. Sudhanshu says, I thought that you'll love this, David. He says, truth triumphs in the end. Um, and I thought, well, it's not the end yet, and I hope you lose, Sudhanshu.
Yeah.
Like, I'm, like, I don't mean to be mean. Sudhanshu's probably a very nice man, but how boring a player has this guy been?
Yes.
Like, at
Yes.
least Urfi has been fun to watch and like a great character and causes drama and
Hmm.
says things passionately at the table. Like Sudhanshu, it's it's not even that he was like Jasmine and he didn't get the game. He just had no real instincts for anything and didn't really ever put himself out on a limb.
Yeah. There's a reason he was invisible this entire time, or as Magiker properly used the term, purple. Uh, you know, uh, because he had nothing to add.
Yeah, just quite bland and
Yeah.
a nice man that everyone seemed to respect, but
Hmm.
didn't. I just don't think he added anything to the show.
Yeah.
Sorry. Um, so it's time for the Fire of Truth, we might normally call it. I don't know if it has a name here. The end game. The
Hmm.
players come out one by one, their fancy new outfits. Nikita says that she's got no idea what she's going to do, whereas Urfi tells us she has a strategy. I assume Harsh just wants to get it finished as quickly as possible.
Right.
Sudhanshu, who the hell knows? Uh,
Just,
Karan goes over the rules. They'll keep voting, Shaq or Trust. If they choose Shaq, they'll vote again to eliminate. If they choose Trust, the game ends. And as at the last circle of Shaq, any eliminated players will not reveal their identity. This is where I said I would come back to this. There's a
hmm.
funny thing I noticed. Um, they have their boxes with the little pouches,
Yeah.
and Shaq is spelt differently than it's spelled in
Yes.
the subtitles.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, that's interesting. It's spelled Shakk. The subtitles, it's Shaq. And I thought, let me just check. And I looked it up. And according to what I see online, there is a little bit of a semantic difference.
Hmm.
I think the subtitles are not quite right. The SHAQ really means like fear, circle of fear, which doesn't quite make sense. But Shaq, SHAKK, means doubt. So I think the subtitles should have been spelt like this the whole time, circle
Yeah,
of
but
doubt.
I think sometimes there are just changes. Like if you look up Orphe,
Hmm.
Wikipedia spells her name without the O.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And if you look at like on TikTok, I was putting in hashtags.
Hmm.
Her name, her full name, has a lot more instances of her name without the O than with the O.
Okay.
So I just put them both in. But uh, I just think it's interesting. I think whenever you have a one language to English difference, you're
Yeah.
gonna have different spellings of it
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes when it's it doesn't always translate directly to a an English spelling of it.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess that explains as well. First couple of episodes, I apologized to Urfi. I was kind of mispronouncing her name because there was
mhm.
this O in it. So I thought it was
Right.
sort of Urfi. But then hearing the players, I thought, oh, it's kind of just Urfi. So maybe that's part of
Yeah, it's like the opposite of British, where they add a U for no reason to an
it.
O word. Here, someone's adding an O to a U word.
Yes, yes, we do like that. So, first round of voting, they choose their pouches. Here we go. Harsh votes green, which means trust, end the game. Which, well, I was going to say maybe it's foolish of Harsh. Actually, I don't think it would have made a difference.
Right.
Nikita votes for red, which I thought was very interesting. She says, I believe there is one more traitor here. Um, and as she says it's because of the recruitment that she turned down and her
Hmm.
subsequent calculations. Actually, she
She's
thinks
right.
that there
Yeah.
must be another one.
Yeah.
Sudan, she votes green. Of course he does, because what the hell?
Yeah.
Um, and Urfi votes red. So she says, I think there's at least one traitor left, and I do not want to take any chances. That seems wise. She then suddenly announces to the others, not what I thought she was going to say, that she doesn't
Hmm.
trust Sudanshu completely. She's got that
Yes.
bit of doubt. And I think maybe this is what you're going to refer to, David, when he
Yes.
says, I think my choice of pouch is enough to prove that I'm not a traitor. And I thought, huh? What?
Yes, that's
Why wouldn't
exactly the opposite. A traitor
it?
would want the game to end because they would
Yeah.
win. This, I was going to say, I don't understand this argument, but really, he didn't understand
Yeah.
his own argument here. It makes no sense, which is a perfect ending to his game.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought, why wouldn't a traitor just choose to end the game like you
Hmm.
did? Yeah, I think what he meant was I chose green and that means I'm a team player and I'm part of the innocents or something weird like that.
Yeah,
But
which
yeah,
still
it
doesn't make
make any sense.
right.
Even
Now,
as an innocent, yeah.
yeah, I was initially, as I was watching this, I was initially confused. I'm like, why is Urfi targeting Sudanshu instead of Harsh right now when she supposedly thinks he's the traitor? But to jump ahead a little bit, I think it was to ensure the numbers because if you have Sudanshu there, who knows how he's voting?
Yeah, yeah.
But
Right.
if you get rid of him, you have a 2-1 majority.
Yeah. And as we find out later,
Yes.
Nikita is actually very important to that plan.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Where Sudanshu was not important to any plan.
yeah, I my final note in Sudanshu is he doesn't have a clue, get him out. Like I wanted him gone. I don't want him to have any
Yes.
prize money now. He's one of those players we see in other seasons get all the way to the end, just sort of coasting through and somehow ending up a winner.
You mean like on US last season?
Well, I don't want to call them out, but yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I thought, why didn't Urfi land harsh in it? But like what you said makes sense. She's
Hmm.
waiting actually. So they vote again. Urfi votes for Sudanshi or Sudanshu G, as she writes. Sudanshu votes for her. And Nikita votes for Sudanshu, as does Harsh. Harsh is still not realizing what's going to happen. He's like, I trust Urfi. I trust Urfi's instincts, not realizing what Urfi's about to do to him. So Sudanshu leaves, makes a speech about having a fantastic time. Actually, sorry, this is my last note on Sudanshu. He says, I've learned something here today. And then he leaves. Uh, I
Yeah.
thought, did he have something else to say? Or did they
Maybe
cut it out because it
it
was
was
so
so
boring?
dumb. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
so dumb
like,
and boring. They just cut it out. But then why
so,
not cut out the part about that learned something today?
so funny. I actually laughed out loud at that bit. I've learned something here today. Off he goes. Um, I'll go and tell Jasmine.
Yeah.
So next round of voting, Shack or Trust. Harsh does he votes green again. He says this thing that just also doesn't make sense. He says, even if I have a little bit of doubt, I can't ask someone to leave now. I thought, why not? That even
Yeah.
if Urfi wasn't going to say what she's about to say, that would be a massive red flag for me. Um, and Nikita votes red, and I thought, oh, okay, like what's gonna happen here? Who's she picking? And she
Hmm.
says this thing that reminded me of you, David. She says this show's called The Traitors. Um, because quite often you
Right.
say it's weird if there's no traitors at the end. It's called The Traitors. Um, and Urfi votes red. She wants to go again. So they vote one more time. Harsh picks Nikita, of course. He's not going to vote Urfi.
Hmm.
It would be way too unbelievable. And Urfi then says, this wasn't easy for me. And we get a flashback to her talking earlier with Harsh. And she says, I'm sorry, Harsh. I know you're the traitor. Uh, and then it's time for Nikita. We get another flashback of Urfi telling Nikita, I heard Harsh and Purav talking. And she's saying, do you trust me? Um, it is them. They are the traitors. And we see Nikita in a bit of anguish, and she's wondering for a moment, could Urfi be making this up? Could she be a traitor too?
Hmm.
But she turns her slate over and votes for Harsh.
Yeah, I wondered. So as this moment was coming, once Nikita voted to vote again, chose to vote again,
Yeah.
and then before just literally just before the flashback occurred, I wrote in my notes. I wonder if she had a conversation, if Orphe had a conversation with Nikita at some point, because they both seem to have the same plan.
Yeah.
And then boom, flashback to the exact conversation that I wondered about, and all was made clear,
Yeah.
and it was really very much like a genius,
Genius game. Yeah.
yes, flashback there, and I was like, oh, yes, it did happen exactly the way I was thinking at that moment. So,
Yeah, such a genius game format beat.
hmm,
They don't do that much, and the only time they do it in Traitors is after a murder, and we go back to why
right,
the Traitors chose that person, and then we see the person get their letter. But
hmm,
yeah, they don't use it that much like this at all. So that's it. Harsh's game is over, and this is just so not how I thought this was going to end. Kran says, "Harsh, if you wish, you could reveal if you're a traitor or an innocent," and
hmm.
he says that he will reveal and tells them, I'm a traitor, guys. And we see Urfi like, oh my God, and then Harsh in his confessionals like, I'm kind of annoyed at her, like, she knew I was a traitor. Why did she have to pretend she was shocked?
Ah,
And and off he goes. It's time for the final reveals. So we know what's happening, but I guess they
right,
don't know. Nikita goes first. And Urfi even says she's still kind of a bit nervous. What if? What
hmm.
if? You never know. But Nikita says she's an innocent, and Urfi uses that silly phrase. I'm an innocent. I've been an innocent since day one. There's no other way to be an innocent. So they hug and
I
celebrate.
hated that. I had to use that phrase, so I posted my video of the winner, congratulating the winners. And there was no way around that. I didn't want to use that phrase in the video because it was so bad, but it was her announcement, so there was
Yeah.
no other way around.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. I
Yeah.
hate that.
And yeah, Nikita reminds us that she refused recruitment because she wanted to win as an innocent. I'm pretty sure at the time I basically called her an idiot. Ha! I guess I'm the idiot now. Normally I would have been right. So
Yes.
they'll share the prize fund, the fireworks go off. I
Well, I don't
do.
know if they'll share because
Well, Urfi's like, keep
Orphe
it.
offered it. You could keep it. Yeah, I don't need it. I just need the title to prove to people I'm not dumb.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure she'll be taking those words back.
Yeah.
And I think the fireworks may have been, fake fireworks. I think there was
I
some
was
CGI
looking at
going
them
on.
more closely than I usually do because you have said that, and they were almost certainly fake fireworks
Yeah.
based on where they were coming from.
Yeah, didn't quite look right.
Yeah.
And of course, Karan says, I'll see you on the next season of The Traitors. So they must have filmed this just in case. By the
Right.
time it broadcast, they knew it was going to happen for sure. And luckily, they've been able to use it. And we,
I mean, they could use it anyway. It's kind of like,
sure, sure.
with at the end of Survivor 40, Jeff Probst, this was when COVID was hitting
Yeah,
like full blast at that moment. And Jeff Probst says, we are going to make sure that we go out there and we get Survivor film next year. We're going to do whatever we can. And then it didn't happen for a year.
yeah,
It's like, well, okay, you can be as assertive about it as you want, but if it
yeah,
doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
I guess so. And so we close the whole season with a repeat of Urfi's infamous line that started off the whole season that Magiker and I laughed at. I hate this game.
Yes.
So it's over. The episode's over. We have a hell of a lot to talk
Right.
about. We've got our thoughts. We have some thoughts from Magiker because he couldn't be with us today, but has sent us a message and a voice message from another huge Traitors fan.
I did want to mention, because I forgot to mention this, when they
Oh yeah,
allowed Harsh to reveal that he was a traitor. I
yes,
did like that because
yeah,
normally they say, well, you can't do that. But there was no reason not to. There were no more decisions, and we got to see their reactions,
yeah,
which in the past, I believe there have been situations when two innocents voted off an innocent, and it was the end, and they just sent that person off.
yeah,
And we were like, oh, I wanted to see their reactions because they were so sure that that person was a traitor, and it would have
mm,
been nice to see them crestfallen that they were wrong.
yeah,
And in this case, it was they were happy that they were right, but I thought it was good to have that there because like there were no more decisions to be had. Might as
yeah,
well do it.
yeah,
Um, and if he had been an innocent, it would have added more of them like, oh crap, what's going to happen now?
yeah,
Uh, so so that, and then also I did like the way overall we talked about the flashback and everything. I liked the way they did that flashback, keeping some suspense. And also, I find it incredibly ironic that earlier in the season, and I don't remember exactly when, or else I would have gone and grabbed a clip. Purav kind of lectured Elnaz about talking to him in the palace. Like, we can't be seen together. You can't be
yes.
talking about it. And then ended up losing the game because he did the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm not really going to defend him, but if you were going to defend it, to play devil's
Mm-hmm.
advocate, there only were three other people, so maybe he thought you
Well,
could get
he
away
got
with it.
comfortable.
Yeah,
He got
yeah.
comfortable. A door must have been open, or else those were the thinnest palace walls ever.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so I just, yeah, I think that the producers and editors knew exactly what they were doing when they put those scenes earlier of him lecturing Elnaz
yeah, yeah, perhaps.
about it. I think that there was no reason to do it otherwise. And then it comes around and it's like, boom, you got nailed by the same thing you told her not to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach on Instagram has commented just on Nikita sent me a message saying Nikita winning was so unexpected to me. Me too.
Hmm.
She was so under-edited and had so many interesting feats like the failed recruitment and late arrival. She's probably a lot of firsts for a winner. Sure, we'll talk more about this. And this is now the question for you, David, specifically.
Okay.
This is Kirsty on YouTube. This is Kirsty who lives in Scotland and listens to us on long journeys sometimes when she was heading into London. Kirsty says, I'm pretty sure I've heard David say that he's not keen on subtitles. You have mentioned this. So I'm curious about how he got on and whether he'd think about watching other foreign language versions in the future. You maybe don't have a specific answer to this. If you were to watch another foreign language version, which one or ones do you think you'd go for first? So yeah, David, how was it with the subtitles? How do you feel?
I mean, it was difficult at the beginning. I'm not going to lie. I kept wanting to look at my phone or look at I was watching on my computer. The program I used to watch it, I could not project it to my TV
Hmm.
like I normally can. So I had to give it my full attention. I couldn't be on the treadmill watching the TV, which is what I normally do with anything that has remotely any subtitles.
Hmm.
I couldn't, there were times, yes, when I, got a message or got something else and I glanced away and I realized now I've got to rewind it.
Yeah.
Or they tricked me. They'd have a couple sentences in English and I'd be like, oh, I can listen to this. And I'd look for my phone. And then they'd switch back to Hindi and I'd be like, crap, now I have to rewind. Um, so yeah, in typically I don't like watching with subtitles. It's true. But this was engaging enough that I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Okay.
Even without that. It was difficult at the beginning, like I said, but another thing that's difficult is I typically watch shows like this if I can at a higher speed,
Yeah, yeah.
1.5 to 2x. It took me a while to get used to reading those subtitles pretty damn quickly, because while I could process it, hearing, because I listen to podcasts at 3x typically. but I could process the hearing, but processing reading that fast, it did take some getting used to each
Yeah.
time. Like I went on one trip, came back, watched 6 episodes, went on another trip, came back, watched 3 episodes, and then the finale. Even like episode 7, I had to like re get used to it again
Yeah.
because I'd,
Yeah.
I'd been away for a week. Uh, so, um, so yeah, would I consider others? Probably. Um, and it is more difficult when you're taking notes. Certainly the finale was a little more difficult
Hmm.
because I had to, normally when I'm taking notes, I can be typing something while the show is still going and you're listening. This, I had to, pause, take notes, pause, take notes. Uh, so I don't know what else I would prefer to do if there is something with subtitles.
Hmm.
But let me say, if there are future seasons, um, I would certainly be open to it, presuming they are subtitled.
Yeah.
But not everyone is going to come out with subtitles. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know if the Traders, was it the Traders Quebec
Yes.
that has that's in French?
Hmm.
I don't know if they have subtitles to it.
I'm pretty sure that one does. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, because, I mentioned it a
Hmm.
few times on the pod. Like, I would like to cover a different,
Hmm.
a version that is in a language other than English. And Quebec is one of the ones that a lot of listeners are recommending.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it does have subtitles. So some point, maybe later this year. I said this months ago and didn't do it,
Yeah.
but it will happen at some point on the pod. So maybe that could be one we go for.
Yeah. And that would also be, we probably wouldn't be doing episode by episode, not to put words
Yeah,
in your mouth, but I believe we wouldn't be doing. So it would be easier to take notes on something like that
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Although I did find them switching to English helpful here because there were those few moments where I could be like, oh, I heard them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. A final well, actually, this is an email. This is an email from Declan who says, I can't remember if this has been asked or not, but do you think a foreign language version of The Traitors would do well on the BBC? There's some, and the BBC has had New Zealand,
mhm.
US, UK, I think Canada. Uh, there's some precedent as Hungry season one was made available on Canada's streaming service, Crave, in November 2024.
Hmm.
I'm not sure how it did in the ratings. P.S. In Denmark, this is a whole separate point, but interesting. In Denmark, season three, the traitors failed in their murder in plain sight. They ended up shortlisting 3 players for murder instead. So there we go. It could fail, which I
I
was worried
wondered
whoever
about
was going
that
to do it. Yeah.
because that's something we talked about in, was it $1 Million Secret,
Hmm.
where sometimes the tasks that they were given, it was just too risky to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I wondered what would have happened if Purav failed. Does it just, okay, that's one less person they knock out and
Yeah.
things
Maybe.
have to be adjusted by production later? I
Hmm.
I, I don't know.
Yeah. As for Declan's question about BBC, do I think a foreign language version would do well? I don't. I'm speculating. I can see them um,
Hmm.
acquiring Traitors. Well, actually, I don't think they'll acquire Traitors India because it's on Amazon, but I can imagine them possibly. If there's a version somewhere that's been really successful in that
Hmm.
country and had huge ratings because it was incredibly dramatic or maybe it had really big names on it, yeah, I can see them putting it on iPlayer. I don't think it would do as well as English, but I think a lot of people like like you said, a lot of
Hmm.
people are just turned off by it and uh just don't like them or struggle with subtitles, so it wouldn't do as well. It just wouldn't.
Yeah,
But it's not totally out of the realms of possibility for the
my
BBC to do
first
it.
thought was that Amazon could run the Traitors India in England, in the
Mm.
UK. Uh, I think that there are, I mean, I don't know the entire makeup of the British population, but considering that one of your national dishes is curry, um, you know, I, I believe that there are, and from watching enough British TV, I believe that there are a fair number of people of Indian descent there.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, and but it occurs to me that probably they don't have the rights to do it. That BBC has the rights to air the Traitors there, so they would have to work a deal with the BBC in order
yeah,
to make that happen.
yeah. I predict that right now it's on Amazon Prime India. I'll be amazed if it doesn't eventually become available on Prime everywhere.
Well, unless, like I said, if there are those restrictions that you can only air, if
Yeah, yeah,
BBC has the rights to the Traitors franchise,
yeah, I guess.
then they have the rights to it, and
Yeah.
and so, um,
And
maybe that's
yeah,
why the Traitors Canada hasn't officially aired in the U.S.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we
so
have to. I'm not sure. Yeah, what the details are, but uh, as I've said, we could use VPNs, and it's legal to do
right,
that, so we can
yeah.
access it.
Right. Now, I did have one comment. It wasn't specifically sent in to me, but it was on the video I did, the one I told you about, the congratulatory video.
Yeah.
Um, and so a commenter wrote, Urfi is a cheater.
Oh.
And I responded and I said, in what way is she a cheater? Now, they have not, as of this recording, responded back to me.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure that they're accusing her of being a cheater for listening in on that conversation, because
Mm.
what else would she have done? But, if they respond back and say that, I will tell them the same thing I was about to say. She did nothing wrong.
No. Yeah.
We have seen people listen in on conversations all the time. We've seen it dating back to, Survivor. Sandra was well known for sneaking around and listening in on other people's conversations. Um, so, yeah, her overhearing, there's nothing about what she did that was cheating. So you know,
Yeah.
I just wanted to address that.
It's part of the one of the reasons it's a sort of semi-reality show, and the reason they
Hmm.
give them time in the palace to just wander and have conversations. It's so that people can break off and branch
Right,
off and potentially, yeah, listen to what other people are saying and
right,
eavesdrop. That's completely legitimate. So it's the boy's fault, if anything.
right.
Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah. Now, I'm sure you've got some final thoughts. I've got some notes written down, my final thoughts on the episode, on the season as a whole. But first, we have alluded to this. I think this is a good time to hear from Magiker. So he's off traveling. He couldn't be with us today, but Magiker has sent us a video to sum up his thoughts on the final season. So let's watch that now.
Hi, Matthew. Hi, David. This is Magiker calling live from the Indian desert. It is so hot here, and there are all kinds of like snakes. I don't know, probably snakes. Anyway, sorry I couldn't be with you, but as you can see, I'm in the Indian desert. Um, Here are some thoughts on the finale. That was interesting. I'm sure you guys are going to get stuck into it and probably say the same things that I am. But let's just get straight into it. So Urfi overhears two traitors traitoring, Purav and Harsh. And then the whole episode goes a bit weird and almost a bit anticlimactic because if she really heard them being traitors, then of course she's going to vote them both out. But then the producers were trying to edit it like, oh, I don't want to go against my friend Harsh, but he's a traitor. So I was kind of like the whole way through thinking, I don't quite understand what's going on here. Did she hear them? She definitely heard them because she managed to convince everyone to get Purav out. And if she convinced everyone to get him out of nowhere, because he had no shak on him before that, then surely then she just has to say, no, I heard him talking with Harsh and they're both traitors, which is what she did. We saw that in a flashback with Nikita. So, bit of a weird one. It ended up being a little bit anticlimactic. One cool thing that happens, of course, is that Nikita ends up winning. She was eliminated on the first day, so that's a bit of a plot twist. And she said when she refused the recruitment, I want to win as an innocent and not as a traitor. And she did. She actually did. So, maybe she is a good poker player after all. A few other thoughts randomly. Sudanshu, what was he doing there? He was a bit of a. I was glad they voted him off because I was like, really? Anyway, I'm sure he's a lovely guy. Just didn't come across very well on camera. Not very charismatic. I was glad they were like, yeah, 5% doubt on you. Get rid of you. I certainly would have been very disappointed if he had actually been one of the winners. Um, I suppose final thought is just that mission in the desert was absolutely spectacular. I mean, the production values on this season have just been phenomenal. Loved it. That looked really tough. They were sweating like anything. I'm sure you guys are going to cover all of this anyway. Just chipping in with my thoughts. Overall, I mean, fantastic season. Really, really loved it. A little bit of a downer at the end. I liked that there was a plot twist, but I thought the producers were doing a little bit too much, trying to confuse us. Whereas it was actually the bubble was burst, the whole bubble of who are the traitors, who are the faithful, or the innocents. Well, Urfi heard two traitors being traitors, so they're the traitors. End of game. I was just glad that she managed to convince Nikita. That would have been more interesting if no one then believed her. It's like, why are you saying this now? No, I really did hear them plotting. So, bit of a weird ending, but I really enjoyed it. Hope you guys have a great final episode of this season of Trader, and I will speak to you soon. Ah, no, there's a snake at my feet in this Indian desert. Okay, bye. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Magiker. It was really nice to get your views, and I'll see you soon, sure. And I'm sure you'll be back on the podcast as well.
Yeah,
David,
he condensed like a whole podcast into 3 minutes there.
yeah, yeah. If only we could do that.
Yeah.
I, what do you think of Magiker thought that it was maybe a bit anticlimactic after Urfi essentially finds out that they are traitors? Do you agree with that?
I I don't think so because this was one of the few points that I think where we disagreed. A lot of what he said were things we've already talked about here, and it's like if he had been able to be on here, it would have been like three-way agreements on everything. Um, and I actually I talked about this. I truly wasn't sure if she really did overhear them. So I mean, it lost some of the oomph, but I don't know how you do it without totally fooling people otherwise. And just ignoring that and doing everything in flashback. I
Yeah.
think you have to. And part of it, like I said, maybe to a new trader's viewer, you look at that and say, aha, which I know he isn't. She did overhear, but we overthought it. So it's funny that Magiker didn't overthink it
Mm.
as much traders as he. I mean, I think he's watched more than we have even. So I do think that uh, because it was shot in a way that reminded me at least of the way we've seen fake overhearing things. For a little while, it allowed me to think, aha, she is, she didn't really overhear.
Yeah.
And as it progresses, it becomes clear. But then it's like, well, did she tell Nikita or did she not tell Nikita? And all these other things. I do think he's right. This whole thing of will I go with my emotions or not? Yeah, that was kind of silly. I'll be doing a video on that, like, oh, she did the right thing and didn't go with her emotions. But I don't know that she was ever really going to go with her emotions
No,
there
no.
because uh what are you going to do? You're going to let someone else win just because, and you lose because, you got close to them in the course of a week.
Yeah.
Eh.
I, I sort of, I understand what Magic is saying,
Mm-hmm.
that it's anticlimactic. I felt a little bit of that myself. I still really enjoyed it,
Right.
but I think I would have enjoyed it more had that not happened. I sort of, even though maybe it would have been too predictable, I kind of wanted Purav to get away with it and pull the wool over everyone's eyes and them
Mm-hmm.
all be aghast when they discover oh, it was him all along, maybe even harsh as well if he made it. So I was a bit disappointed, and maybe I'll cover this in my final thoughts. I felt little bit of a sense of disappointment that, oh, that's not how I thought this was going to end. And again, it's not absolutely, I wouldn't say she was cheating.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought, oh, it's kind of a happy accident that she just happened to
Yeah.
overhear them.
And
Oh, she now knows, even though it took me a while to figure it out.
yeah.
But
Yeah. I'll have more to say. I was going to say a couple things, but I have more to say. I'll wait until the
yeah,
very end about
yeah,
that. But yeah, it was I'm sure the producers expected him to win and were surprised by this as
yeah.
well. And they were kind of like, oh, heck, what do we do? I guess to address um, what Magiker was saying about, I guess they could have just let it go and then at the next, at that circle of shock, when she turns on him and gets him out, play some of the video then, and then play some of the video afterwards as a total surprise maneuver.
Yeah.
They could have done it that way instead. I didn't mind it this way.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. We also have another sort of voice message, and this is from Ashley. So Ashley is a huge Traitors fan, has watched multiple different versions of different countries, and Ashley got in touch to say that they were really, really excited about the Traitors India version. Ashley lives in Canada, but is a Hindi speaker. And so Ashley has sent us various thoughts on the season, the finale, and some specific points about the language used and the funny differences between the subtitles and what the players are actually saying sometimes. So here we go.
My God, let's talk about that finale. This season of The Traitors is by far one of the best seasons of any Traitors across the franchise. Every single character, every single strategy, every single gameplay, every single overdramatic situation makes for such entertaining TV. From the casting to the missions to the way the whole show is structured, it was sensational. As somebody who is a native Hindi speaker and who grew up in India and am such a huge fan of the Traitors format, to see South Asians being their over exaggerated, over dramatic, cringy, yet absolutely intelligent selves gave me such life. For those who are not native Hindi speakers and are reading the subtitles, I have to tell you that the communication on the show by some of the native Hindi speaking contestants are absolutely vulgar. So vulgar. They were throwing cuss words at each other left, right, and center as if it's a part of normal conversation, which it is, but when it is put together and compiled and accumulated with heightened drama, oh my God. I was so taken aback the amount of times they were referring to their own uh, sadness as motherfucker, sisterfucker. That blew my mind. There's another phrase too, which roughly translates to my ass is being torn apart. What? While they're using such absolutely vulgar phrases as a part of normal, regular conversation, they're still doing it respectfully, which blows my mind. They will refer to people who are elder as Bhai or G, and right up until the very end. And to me, that is so baffling, but makes complete sense. You're making such good TV. I am so happy with this casting. Urfi, Sufi, and Apurva are reality television gold. Mahip too, but Mahip is already a part of the Fabulous Lives of Bollywood Wives, the reality show, which is the Indian offshoot of the Real Housewives. And she sounds like a Real Housewife. But Sufi, Apurva, and Urfi, they make television worth tuning in for. I was so happy that Urfi won at the end. There's a lot of discourse about the finale. A lot of people are saying it's scripted, but I think that Harsh and Purav got a little too excited when both of them went to Urfi and said, "Oh, maybe we should get Sudhanshu out." I was like, hello. I'm pretty sure Urfi is smarter than this. And I'm so glad Urfi chose until the very, very last minute to get Harsh out. And in the finale, you could tell that Purav was just as overconfident as Raj Kundra was in the very first episode. This entire season, the amount of times I was at the edge of my seat because every single Circle of Shock roundtable was so entertaining and so compelling. It's so interesting to watch these actors who are legacy actors or internet stars who are known for being on the judging panel of reality shows think so highly of themselves that they make a complete fool of themselves, especially Raftar. My God, what such foolishness! From the entire cast, you could tell that for some, Hindi is not their first language. For Lakshmi, Hindi is not her first language. English is, and you could tell it was much easier for her to speak in English, as well as Nikita and Elnaz. Elnaz had to learn Hindi when she moved to India, while you have these Delhi boys like Purab and North Indian boys like Harsh, for whom Hindi is is a it's muscle memory to them. And I found that so fascinating that people who are from these metropolitan cities like Mumbai and Delhi have such a way with words that even though they're being really crass and dismissive, it's still oddly endearing and respectful. There's so many idioms and proverbs that are in Hindi. When translating it using the subtitles, the people writing the subtitles got it completely wrong. But I'm going to be watching this particular season repeatedly. My partner, who is learning Hindi on Duolingo at the moment, absolutely devoured this season. And I'm just so happy to watch that. I'm particularly glad that Urfi and Nikita won because there was there was this like boys club that was being formed, and I couldn't quite get myself to get behind it. It was getting to a point that where it felt almost sexist in the way Harsh had used a very throwaway way of talking about his relationship with Urfi. And after which, Urfi and Jasmine actually had a conversation about it. Urfi, as much as I love her and I love her for TV, I still couldn't get past the homophobic statement she made about Sufi. And I was like, I don't know if that was required. You could have you could have maybe perhaps said something else. But all in all, what a fantastic season. And I was so happy to learn that Magiker met the person whose wife recorded the vocals on the track that was used. Trust is a cruel friend. Oh, oh my God. I'm so excited for the person who recorded that. And I cannot wait until we get the Traitors Island. I know for a fact that it is going to be absolutely incredible because the host is Sister Michael from Dairy Girls. All right. Thank you so much. This is so great. If you want to talk more traders, you know where to find me.
Thank you so much to Ashley. There is a lot to cover there. I guess the one thing that was really interesting to me was not only were the subtitles in English not matching up with the English language, but that they were incredibly different to what they were saying in Hindi.
Which I guess that's not surprising if we can see it in English and hear them dropping out all the F bombs. Yeah, imagine until they mention that here. I guess I wasn't really thinking about it, but yes, it's just imagine what they're dropping out.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we don't have to imagine because they told us here what some of it was. All the MF bombs and
Yes.
everything else that they're doing there. That I think it's funny that why Why are you doing that with the subtitles? Like,
Yeah.
why? I mean, is the subtitler a prude or something like that? That they didn't want to put any, oh,
Yeah.
we can't put that word in the subtitles. People might read it.
Yeah.
We can hear it. Hearing it's okay, but reading it is bad.
Yeah, it's strange. And Ashley talked about, there being maybe like a sort of a boys' club, and maybe is there something going on there, and the way
Hmm.
that they, definitely, yeah, Harsh definitely was maybe a bit sort of a throwaway about Urfi, the way that he spoke. And maybe that did lead to their downfall by being a bit too dismissive of some of the female players. Who knows?
Hmm.
Uh, that's a sort of actually edited down version. Ashley sent me a lot more than that. I think that Ashley should either post all of it on Instagram so you guys can listen, or Actually, go live on Instagram, do a video, a live stream, and give us your thoughts on the whole season. There's so much there, and I'm sure Ashley won't mind me sharing their Instagram username so you can follow them. It's Shady Queen, but spelled slightly differently. It's spelled at SHAYD. So letters round the other way. QUEEN, and I'll put a link to Ashay's Instagram in the episode description so you can follow as well and ask for more thoughts on what was going on in that season.
It surprises me not at all that the actual Shady Queen was already taken and probably 18 different variants of it. So that was
Yeah,
good to at least get that version
yeah,
of it. But yeah, yes, that was very good.
yeah, yeah. So thank you, Ashley. We probably have our own final thoughts too.
Hmm.
I've got like maybe two or three main points. With hopefully not repeating myself. David, any final thoughts on this episode or the whole season?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great season. I would easily put it in top 5 of all those I've seen, which would be all the English speaking versions plus this one. Maybe even top 3. It's hard to judge. Ranking is arbitrary and reductive, as a well-known former Survivor player was known to have said. Um, but the thing was, they were celebrities, and a few of them clearly didn't need the money, but they fought for that title like they were fighting for their literal lives, And I could only wish that all the housewives on the Traitors US would play like this. Now, who knows? Maybe with season 4 around the corner. Well, it's a long way around the corner, but having been filmed, maybe we'll see something like that. And I have some hopes for some specific people who are on there, but we won't know that till probably like January. So we'll just have to hold our collective breaths until then. But I'm not holding my breaths on the housewives thing. I think that these celebrities in general are much more knowledgeable, much better, and it was just great. I will say I wasn't a huge fan of Orphe through most of the season. Yes, she brought the excitement. She brought the fighting. Normally, I'm not in favor of people who aren't playing the game well, but are just bringing the fighting, AKA Kate. But Orphe was trying to play the game while having those fights. So I think that's a little bit different. And then for her to win the way she did at the end, it was, a little disappointing because you had the traitor Purav playing so well the whole way through, but it was still incredible television. The whole game turned because of one overheard conversation. And it just shows you everything can fall apart because of that. And, in some ways, that's true to life. We have seen in my life's history, we have seen whole political campaigns fall apart because of one conversation, one thing said on air. And then we've seen other ones that go on, even though they've said tons of different things that shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But, Nikita, she should thank her lucky stars because she just didn't do much from what we saw, other than she did accurately point out the timeline, how there must be 2 traitors. And she won in the end because she was willing to work with Orphe. And, she did a lot more than some people on the Traitors US who won last season. So those are my final closing thoughts. I would highly recommend this season to anyone who can find it. In fact, on Instagram, we recommended it to Sandra, who commented on one of my videos. So yeah, we would recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, great. And there was something that you said there, and I was going to come back to it, and I can't remember what it is, but maybe
Oh,
I'll repeat it now. Um, I my final things to say about this season are again, I'm very surprised the Innocents won. I
yes.
thought Purav had it in the bag. I would
And so
never
did
have.
Purav. And I think that's, sorry to interrupt you there, but that's the key. Purav thought he had it in the
Yeah,
bag. He got comfortable. He caused his own downfall.
yeah, absolutely. I now, even if somebody told me actually it's going to be an innocent win,
Hmm.
I wouldn't have picked Urfi and Nikita as the
Yeah,
final
no.
two. It's such a strange outcome. However, I'm going to say I've kind of said this. Although I'm always glad of a surprise and a twist, and it's good that it wasn't
Mhm.
predictable. I do agree with Magiker, and I felt a little bit underwhelmed that the innocents only won because Urfi overheard a conversation. And maybe that's fair enough. That's how the game can go. That's what happens
Mhm.
sometimes. But and I think the boys should not have been talking so blatantly. It is their own fault. But what it meant was she just knew they were the traitors from that point.
Right.
She didn't need to figure anything out. It was an accident. So the end of the game didn't really come down to trust or instincts or logic or taking a chance. It kind of just came down to someone knowing for once 100% the
Yeah.
identity of the traitors. The one time they can actually say that.
I mean,
Um,
Nikita, she had to get Nikita to go along with her.
yeah.
And maybe this will lead to in the future a trader somewhere using this and saying, I overheard this conversation. I
Yeah.
know 100%.
Interesting.
Now, how many of the traders, US or UK people, are watching the Traders India? Who knows? But
Yeah.
at least maybe on the Traders India next season or in a couple seasons, someone says, I overheard a conversation.
Yeah.
I know 100%,
Yeah.
which would be funny. And yes, there is something about coming down to happenstance
Yeah.
that you're right. I could totally see that, that it kind of undercuts the season a little bit,
Yeah.
but I still, and especially since Urfi, one thing about Urfi that I did not like was every time at breakfast, I know this is who's been murdered. I know this is who's been
Yeah.
murdered. Someone else has been murdered. See, didn't I tell you? I told you this. Like she never admitted being wrong ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like, okay, this person who has been wrong so often ends up winning, but she did the smart thing. Even at the very end, she did the smart thing.
Yeah. And I would still give her credit for
Hmm.
what she did with that information. And it is true. Maybe, okay, she knew for sure now that Harsh and Pura were
Hmm.
traitors. Nikita could have also been a traitor, and she didn't know that
Right.
for sure. Um, but yeah, she did have to play it smartly and not reveal it all immediately at the Circle of Shack. She very cleverly decided, well, I'll
Hmm.
get Purav out first and pretend I'm with Harsh, but then I'll save him till later so that he doesn't suspect anything and maybe try and turn it back on me. So actually,
Right.
that was smart play.
Yeah.
It's also incredible that, I think it was Zach who sent in that comment, and it's incredible that a returning player actually won, and that a player who turns down recruitment survived to the
Hmm.
end and then won. Overall, though, it's pretty clear I love this season. Like you said, I thought there was great casting. Some of my favorites were Apurva, Urfi, Purav, Elnaz, Sufi, Raftar, Raj. Although Raj didn't last long, it was incredible visually. Lots of nice little twists and changes to the games along the way, and like you said, David, the players knew the game and mostly played it the way it
Right.
should be played.
Right.
And it has an unexpected ending, and maybe that's actually okay that the person I was sure was going to win actually didn't win. Maybe
Yeah.
that is good TV. So, David, you told us a little bit about, what you cover online earlier, but tell us how we can find you. What other shows are you covering right now? How can people follow you?
So I am all over social media and reality TV podcasting. As I mentioned earlier, I have been on like a 3 to 4 week podcasting break, but after this one, things are about to get busy again as Big Brother 27 that's US Big Brother, will start this coming week. It's coming out. The first episode will be July 10th. So I will be returning to the RHAP network on doing the Big Brother version of Why Blank Lost with my co-host for that is Big Brother 21's Ovi Kabir. And we will do a preview episode at some point after the cast is announced. I'm not entirely sure. Sometimes they announce the cast like one day before the show airs because they don't want us to have too much time to dig into them and find out all the terrible things they've said on social media, which is inevitable.
US
And so,
traitors.
yeah, oof, yes. So we'll do the preview, and then we will do why each person lost every week after that. Even during my podcasting break, I have still been posting at least 2 reality TV short videos every day on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram as @DavidBloombergTV. It has been mostly Survivor flashbacks and looks ahead to Survivor 50. So I look at how someone played in their previous season and wonder about what they might do in 50. They finished filming Survivor 50. It was supposed to be the same day as the Traitors US Season 4 finished filming. Although I say the same day, we were in 2 parts of the world. So it's, technically, but it didn't matter because of that 1 day delay, apparently. And then, of course, I had some for the Traitors India, though I wish I had more. I will be having more. I have a number of them for the finale that I will be posting. And then a few for Destination X here in the US and The Snake here in the US. You could find all of my various accounts. Those 3, I'm at David Bloomberg TV. I don't remember if I mentioned that, but all of them you could find on my Linktree, which is Linktree/David Bloomberg. You can find me directly on Blue Sky as at David Bloomberg, and join me for conversation on Blue Sky, or in the comments on any of my various video posting areas.
I was going to say that there is a Survivor India. I was going to suggest you cover that next, David, but
Oh,
I
well.
also think there were only a couple of seasons of it. By the looks of it, it ended in 2021, so maybe it was like the UK's short-lived version,
Yeah.
sadly. Now, to make sure you are up to date with the podcast, because although Traitors India is over, there will be other versions of Traitors coming soon, maybe even other shows in this sort of world. So to keep up to date with what we're covering, you should follow on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube at the Traidar Podcast. You can leave comments on those places, keep up to date with what's going on. You can also email me at thetraidarpodcast@gmail.com. Although, if you email me now, you might have to wait a long time till I include it on a podcast, but I can
Yes.
certainly reply to you. And as always, it's really, really helpful to subscribe, follow, leave a review or a star rating wherever you're listening, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and so on. Helps other people find the podcast, keeps it going, keeps the listenership up. And finally, if you have been listening and enjoying the season and you want to make sure the podcast comes back and keeps going, you could put in a one-off donation on ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley. Another huge thank you to repeat donators, Alice and Angus, who have donated to the coffee page. So thank you so much. They are firmly in the Trader Hall of Fame at this point. So thank you so much, Alice and Angus. And I'll close today by firstly saying thanks again, David, for joining me. It's been another
Absolutely.
great recap of a finale. And thanks also to Sanjay, who joined me in episode 4, and Magiker, who covered every other episode. I am going on vacation tomorrow, and then I head off home to Scotland for another little birthday vacation later this month. So the pod will be resting for a wee while. I'll be back at the latest in September, either for UK Celebrity Traitors or Traitors Ireland, whichever comes first. Probably both at the same time, knowing our luck.
Yeah.
We may come back before that to do something else. We'll see. In the meantime, check out all the previous seasons of Traitors that we've covered, and even other shows like Survivor UK, UK's Genius Game, $1 Million Secret on Netflix, which is the only one of those three returning for a second season. Until I'm back with you, remember, trust is rare, betrayal is everywhere.
And stay traitorous.
Bye.